Hello guys, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a part 2 to my previous Dark Souls video in which I rank Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 top 5 favorite bosses. Now all I can say before we begin this video is that a lot of the bosses probably gonna have similar placements because I enjoy difficult bosses. Without further ado, let's begin. The first game I am beginning with is of course Dark Souls 1, and this game has a lot of solid bosses. Now I would say a few of them stand out, but it was quite easy making this top 5 because there's clearly at least a top 4 bosses that I enjoy the most. So in the 5th spot I have a boss fight that is probably a really hot take to be in the top 5, which is Crossbreed Priscilla. Now, this gal has a really fun idea of a boss fight where she becomes invisible and half of the arena has snow on the ground, which when she's invisible, if she walks on that area, you can see her footsteps. Which to me is a very simple but effective idea and I just really enjoyed. The biggest problem with this boss fight for me is that it's too easy. Like she dies too quickly and it just feels like there's not enough challenge. So even though DT is good, I just first tried her in like a minute or like 30 seconds, I don't remember. It felt kinda not enough, you know? But other than that, a really cool idea that I personally really enjoy, and this is why this boss fight is in the top 5. In the top 4, I have Ornstein and Smog. Now this fight, again, I'm gonna be repeating myself, is my favorite duo boss fight probably in the entire trilogy because it's just done very well. One guy is smaller and faster while the other hits harder but is slower, and you kind of have to manage them both. I think another thing that's really cool about this boss fight is depending on which one you kill, the second phase, the other guy is gonna get stronger and kind of inherit some of the abilities from his fallen fellow. And it's just, I think, really fun, really solid, well-made duo fight that we rarely get these days, you know? In the third spot, I have Gwyn. The guy is just has a banger of a theme. I just love the music, love how the hype of how it's the acclamation of your whole journey, and I just really enjoy fighting him. I think the fact that I can parry him adds to that because I really enjoy the parry mechanic in these games, even though not many bosses are able to be parryable, or it doesn't give you as much of an incentive to parry them, unlike some of them. Gwyn is included into this list. And I just think the boss fight is really fun, it's really pacey, and I love difficult, fast, humanoid bosses that are challenging. In the second spot I am Manus, the Father of the Abyss. Now, this guy is really fun, but he's really fun because he's very fast, very aggressive, and at least in Dark Souls 1, show how good you are. Because in my opinion, Manus is the hardest boss in Dark Souls 1. And so if you can take him on, and even maybe take him on just for fun, and no longer a challenge, kind of shows you how much you grew throughout the journey as a player. And I think in most of these games, if the boss is done correctly and it's not annoying, I just enjoy fighting the hardest boss again multiple times because it shows how much I improved at the game. Other than that, he does have you could call a second phase that he uses magic, but from my experience, depending of course on your luck, most of the time he's not gonna use any of the abilities, he's gonna use one or two in the whole fight, and if you have a quick reactions, it's not gonna be a problem, but it doesn't really, for me personally, add anything to the fight. And at the first spot, of course, I have my goat, my knight, Artorias. And just like in the previous video, there's nothing really much for me to say about him. It's just that I always have a blast fighting him. I think he's perfectly designed and made. I love his lore, I love his design, I love his moveset. Everything about him feels perfect. I will say maybe I'm glazing a bit too much, but I think this guy is the epitome of Dark Souls 1. Like, he deserves to be on the logo of Dark Souls 1. The guy is the GOAT, and it's sad when I beat him because the fight is over. Okay, I'm done with Dark Souls 1. Now, I will say, it's been a bit a while since I played Dark Souls 1, so apologies if my description is not enough for why these fights deserve a top 5, but I don't care. So now we're moving to Dark Souls 2. Now the problem with Dark Souls 2 is, for me, the game can stand on its own two legs. It's solid, it's not as bad as some people say. But all the good things, in my opinion, are map design, boss design, but not the actual fights. Apart from like 3 boss fights, Dark Souls 2, in my opinion, doesn't really have memorable fights. Maybe that's another hot take, I don't know. So it was much harder to pick out which bosses I want to put here, but I think I finally decided, and I'm gonna try my best to give at least some points on why I think they deserve to be in the top 5. In the 5th spot, I have Looking Glass Knight. And this guy is like a mid-journey fight. Why he deserves to be here is because, unlike most of these bosses who are bland and not original and unique, he actually has a really cool idea that summons a phantom of a, I think, different player. I might be lying, but I don't know. I cannot be too sure. And you have to then kill 1v1 the player, kill him, and then you finish off the Looking Glass Knight. I will say, just like Frostbeat Priscilla, there's nothing really much else going on with the fight. So if you don't like the idea as much as I do, for you it's probably not in the top 5. But for me, I think the fight is just enjoyable, really enjoyable, and that's why it deserves a top 5. In the 4th spot, I have Smelter Demon. Now, because this is more talking about enjoyability, for me, even though the blue version is more difficult, I don't think, to me, they are that different compared to one another, so I'm just gonna put them both in here. Whoever you think deserves it more, you can just imagine it's that variant. So, Smelter Demon. The guy, both of the versions have really annoying runbacks, but I'm just gonna push that away, that information. We don't care about that, we care about the fight. And the fight overall, it's kinda like Artorias, but worse, where it's like, there's nothing really much of a spectacle. What I mean by that is there not some like cool gimmick or an idea with the boss fight. It's just like you dodge attacks and hit him back, you know, the classic Dark Souls experience. But I just really like their moveset and their combos and their timings, and I just enjoy fighting them. Now, one thing that happens is that after they lose a certain amount of HP, they do start burning, and if you're too close to them, you're gonna get damaged. But to me, this doesn't really make a difference in the fight, and I don't really care, so honestly, whatever, right? In the 3rd spot, and from here on out, the top 3 is like, here was Smelter Demon, this is like 3rd spot, like the difference is massive. But so in the 3rd spot, we have Fume Knight. The guy is crazy fun to fight. He has, of course, as always, 2 weapons, one fast and small and the other big and slow, and you just kind of have to learn the timings of both weapons. When you're swinging the small sword, you have to react fast. When you're slow, you have to wait out a bit, you know, some of the delayed attacks. And in the 2nd phase, he does have some projectile attacks that are a bit annoying in my opinion, but they still make a fight more unique and interesting. And I just overall, he's just like Artorias' cousin. Like, the guy is just really fun and enjoyable. But I will say, I don't remember how they're called, but I think there's Soul something. Before the fight, there's 4 roots or whatever that if you don't destroy them, he's gonna heal during the fight, I think. So please destroy it, because I think these kinds of little things outside the battle that you have to do, usually in Dark Souls 2, they don't just make the fight harder, they make it more annoying and unfun. So please, first of all, destroy the 4 things around the arena before you go in, and then you're chilling. In the second spot, I have Sir Alone. And Sir Alone is a fight that's actually one of the few fights that I really enjoy, not just because of his moveset, but the guy actually punishes wrong positioning. Because unlike other fights in the game, there are some, like I'm not gonna lie. But to me, this, during my Dark Souls 2 playthrough, felt the most punishing is depending on the way you circle him, some attacks are gonna be much harder. Now you can still dodge all of his attacks without good positioning, and it doesn't matter. But especially if this is your kind of like first playthrough, I would recommend I'm not gonna spoil where and how you position, but just learn how you have to circle him. Because the fight becomes much easier, because it's much easier to react, and actually because of how hitboxes work, it's less punishing. Because the hitbox stays... I'm not gonna be explaining hitboxes to you because I don't really care. In the first spot, I have Dark Lurker. And this fight adds two things. First, a really fun boss fight that's just kind of like, again, that whole Artorias prototype that has really cool movesets and it just has a cool design, really fun fight overall. But also, it has a really good idea. It's simple but effective. And I think that's better than trying to do some kind of bloated idea that doesn't work out. And I think this fight is just so much fun. Like Dark Lurker, I don't know how to feel about his quests, to get to him. But I think out of all the bosses in Dark Souls 2, this is one of the only bosses that it's actually like worth it. It's worth it to do the quest. So first of all, what he does is does a bunch of magic attacks that actually have their own interesting ways to come around them. They're not that simple. Sometimes he uses a fireball that you kind of just have to run away from it. Sometimes he uses magic that opens a portal to the on some side and you need to locate it to dodge it better. Sometimes he shoots a laser, but it's quite simple. And then you beat his first phase, and in the second phase he spawns a second clone of himself. Now in the lore, I don't know if it's a clone, is it another one of him, I don't know what it is, but whatever. And basically all of the attacks that look very simple become... So what I was saying, all the attacks that were very simple become extremely difficult. Okay, extremely maybe is the wrong word because it's not that bad, but still, they become much harder to dodge, but it makes that fight really hectic and really fun. And honestly, it's one of those fights that is difficult. A lot of stuff is happening, but it doesn't feel like bullshit, like a lot of fights in Dark Souls 2. But it's just really enjoyable, really fun. There is a chance, because it's quite a secret boss fight, that you haven't even beat it if you didn't see spoilers what bosses you can encounter. So if you didn't do it, it's worth it. Maybe if that's the whole reason you're doing a Dark Souls 2 playthrough, then maybe sadly don't do it, because it takes a lot of time to beat Dark Souls 2. But the fight, it easily towers over every boss in this game for me in Dark Souls 2. I think, sometimes in the game there's a top 5 and you say, oh, it's gonna be different every month or every week. I don't think this is gonna change for like my whole life. Like, I think this is how far away Dark Lurker is compared to every other boss. But that's about it for Dark Souls 2. And finally, we have Dark Souls 3. Now, all I'm gonna say about this before I begin the ranking is that the game has a lot of good bosses. Like, it was the toughest one to rank, all 5 of them. And all I can say is because I just really enjoy a bit faster pace of all the bosses, and I just think they're a bit cooler than the previous ones. And there's maybe more like top heavy bosses, if that made sense. In the top 5 I have Freed. Now, an honorable mention would be Pontiff Sulyvahn. It was kind of me choosing between the two of those. And really, the only difference between them, both of them are really fast fights, with one having 2 phases with the other 3, and they really easily punish you if you don't know what you're doing, and they're both really challenging. But the only thing that I had kind of pushed me over to Freed is because for me personally, because Freed is the most challenging fight in the game, I just get more a bigger dopamine rush, a bigger feeling of accomplishment compared to Pontiff Sullivan, and that's like the only reason I picked Freed over him. But at the same time, she is kind of a bit annoying with how fast she is. That's like her only downside, or why she couldn't go higher. In the top 4, and maybe a hot take, is Abyss Watchers. Honestly, out of all the trilogy, I don't know if there's any boss that has been this early into your playthrough and this goated. Like, Abyss Watchers, their design, their idea, their whole moveset is just goated. And I'm just gonna talk about it because it's so good. First of all, the fact that you're actually fighting the Legion's members, but because they had a war between each other, when you arrive, most of them are dead, is a crazy cool setting, and I just really like that. But when you actually fight them in the first phase, you're just fighting basically one Legion member, but there are 2 others, one that spawns that always fights you, or fights the other Abyss Watcher that actually fights for you, basically. Now, because it's like this whole carnage in the fight, depending on what you do, all 3 of them could just be attacking you. If you just hit, for example, let's call it good guy, once, he's gonna attack you and all of that stuff. It's really fun, and it's really fun how you can kind of play around the fact that one of them is fighting each other, and really fun, really cool. I really enjoy that. When it comes to the second phase, I'm not really a lore expert, I don't know what's happening, but I think the whole carnage and all the bloodlust and blood kind of goes into one Abyss Watcher, and he kind of becomes the symbol of the Abyss Watchers. And you kind of fight him, his sword becomes on fire, and I'm just gonna say this much. His moveset is really cool, but at the same time, you actually learn a lot from this fight, because his fire attacks, they kind of leave an after attack, so when he attacks there is a bit of fire. So you have to dodge a bit more perfectly, so you wouldn't get attacked by the fire, or you have to dodge in the direction that the fire is no longer comes from. And it just kind of makes you learn. Now you can, like some people, just brute force it, and you will learn it in the future, but it's kind of a really fun, good learning experience that really, in my opinion, at least this early in the game, is unmatched with how well the fight moves. I probably yapped too much for this section, but it doesn't matter. Abyss Watchers are goats, man. In the third spot, I have Nameless King. It kinda goes without the question. The guy is just an absolute menace when it comes to bosses. He's really enjoyable. I will say the only reason he kinda doesn't have a fighting chance to go further than third is because, in my opinion, because of the camera angles, the first phase kinda sucks. You know, with the dragon, I kinda hate that part. Like, you cannot lock on. It's really annoying. So for that reason, he cannot go higher. But that just shows how good the second phase is, how enjoyable it is, that even with the shit first phase, the guy is in my top 3. And he's really fun. But I will say, if you're one of those who spam rolls, you're gonna get punished, because the guy really likes to wind up his attack. Yeah, that's it. In the second spot, I have the GOAT, Prince Lothric. Now, there is a princess in the second phase, but I don't remember her name. Lorien, maybe? I don't know. And the guy is really fun. First of all, the first phase, really easy, and even though his moveset isn't enjoyable, it wouldn't be that good. But the second phase, I know some people really get annoyed when he teleports and you lose the lock-on. But I just think it's so fun when he dodges around, and when you're actually master that fight. Ooh, it's so good. Like when he charges up his blade and you know the timing, it's just so satisfying to dodge his teleport attacks. I really have fun, and it's honestly an amazing fight. Like, I really wouldn't want anything else in a fight. I just think it's so satisfying and so enjoyable with the way his teleporting works, and it just makes the fight so good, and it just makes you feel like a badass when dodging it. Now, again, as I mentioned before, it depends on how much you like his teleporting. If you hate the teleportation thing and you're just annoyed, he's not gonna be in your top 5. But for me, the goated fight. Really goated fight. And in the first phase, I think after doing some thinking, probably my favorite boss in the whole trilogy is Gale. The guy is amazing. Like, the fight, it has, I would call it 3 phases, even though it's not really phases, it's more like, actually it's phases, it doesn't, I don't give a shit. The guy, and it's kind of like, you know, those some of these edits where they say, oh, at the start of the game, 2 nobodies fighting each other. By the end of Dark Souls 3, 2 nobodies fighting each other. It's just sick, you know, in the whole desolate desert where there's basically nothing but just ruins and you're fighting him, and that quote, just give me your Dark Soul. Amazing. Chef's Kiss. This fight has everything I wanted. Honestly, apart from maybe Artorias and Dark Lurker, and maybe Lothric, nothing really comes close to how fun this fight is. And it's one of those fights like Artorias where you have to experience it for yourself. Just kinda. But I will say, even if you watch the video, and it's not just some guy who's making it really goofy and funny, and you just lock in, the experience around this boss fight is amazing. Especially when you're on the third phase and just lighting is running down and he's has jumping around attack. Like, great boss fight. Really enjoy it, and I will play Dark Souls 3 probably again soon. So I'm done with this list. Hopefully you agree with the list. If not, tell me in the comments. Hopefully you guys have a nice day. I always it's kind of awkward to end these videos. I don't know why. I'm just kind of chill like that. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.